Hello everyone, welcome to my first video. It is 1 a.m. and my family's asleep, so I'm recording. um, Today we're going to be talking about an album that's pretty close to my heart. I'm wearing the shirt. You probably know who it is. It's a band that got me into metal and got a lot of other people into metal. They're one of the biggest bands out there right now in heavy music. It's Slipknot with their 2001 album Iowa, released on Roadrunner Records, August 28th, 2001. So, a little bit about the band. Slipknot is a new metal, alternative metal band from Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, I believe. Formed in 1994. Don't fact check me on that. Somewhere around there. And they have 9 members, which is like their thing. Their thing is that they wear spooky masks and jumpsuits on stage. They have 9 members, meaning they make use of percussion, turntables, a whole bunch of other stuff, and keys, stuff like that. And so their music is dark and has a lot of layers to it. It's pretty interesting. And with this album specifically, Iowa, they with this album specifically, they said that this was the darkest time in their career, where they had just come off of multiple years of touring, almost 2 full years of touring for their debut album, the self-titled Slipknot album, and there were a lot of tensions in the band. There's a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol going on, and that really influenced the music that they created at the time very heavily. So, how to do? The Slipknot's album Iowa went platinum in the UK, the United States, and Canada. And that is insane, by the way, because it's one of the only mainstream sort of music successes ever to feature blast beats in the drums and death metal influenced style, especially vocals, for example, and really heavy guitar tones. And that's just something that we'll probably never see again, and that's really interesting. This album specifically is their longest album they released. It's over 66 minutes long, and when you're listening through it, you can tell that it's really long, because we'll get to that. So let's talk about the tracks. The first track is the intro track 515, which is the area code for Iowa, and it features some spooky turntable stuff and Sid Wilson, the DJ, with some just horrifying screams, which apparently, as the story goes, his grandfather died, I believe, while they were recording, and they just put him in the studio and had him just scream about it, which is totally brutal. The first real track is People Equal Shit, which is not a joke. It's a really heavy song, actually, and the lyrics are very, very dark, even if the chorus is a little juvenile, I suppose. It was probably my favorite song when I was 14 or 15 years old, and listening to it again really just brought me back, and it was a familiar feeling, but it didn't really feel like it was all that I remembered it was. This song specifically is really good, but later in the album it started to feel like I kind of outgrew it. The next song is Disasterpiece, which is one of the best tracks that Slipknot has ever released. And it really it really just encompasses everything that Slipknot does really well, which is fast, aggressive, sort of rap, sort of yelled vocals, and really dark themes, and then heavy, simple but very heavy guitar riffs underneath, and not necessarily, and obviously not verging into death metal territory, but kind of pushing that label sort of. And Disasterpiece does that very, very well. It's a longer song, but it's just filled with aggression. And it's if you're looking for a characteristic song to describe this album or Slipknot's work as it was at this era, I'd listen to Disasterpiece. It's a great song. Following after that is My Plague, which is an underrated song. It has this like singing. It has like an actual singing chorus, which is something that they would do a lot more of later in their career. But the rest of the song is still pretty heavy. Everything Ends, which is another track, is very dark thematically, and something that I took to quite a bit when I was in high school. Actually, I really liked this song. And in Everything Remains, you can really tell that Slipknot's using this sort of like vocal-led song structure, where they'll have an intro riff, and then they'll have a verse of lyrics, and then a chorus, and then they'll kind of they'll have some break, and then they might do a chorus again. It's a pretty predictable song structure that is used by pretty much every mainstream rock band you could imagine, and I think that's part of why Slipknot has managed to have this mainstream appeal, even though they are quite a bit more aggressive and quite a bit edgier than pretty much at all the other music that you'll hear on the radio, for example. So, in Heretic Anthem, for example, there's the repeated chorus of "If you're 555, then I'm 666." It's kind of it's a common thing that all Slipknot fans love. Like that's the highlight of their shows usually. And even though the lyrics make no sense, it's a great sing-along chorus to get the crowd into it, and and it's just fun to listen to. It's not pushing the label on anything technically. It's not anything super complex, and it's not gonna make you interested intellectually. But if you can just turn off your brain and enjoy the music and just be angry for a bit, you'll like it. The next song is Gently, which comes around the halfway mark of the album, and it starts off with an eerie sort of intro, and it takes a while to build up, and it kind of takes you out of the flow. It's a good song, and it ends really strong, and it ends strongly, but it really isn't that. It kind of breaks up the flow, especially after the Heretic Anthem, which is a very heavy song, and it's got a strong chorus to lead you into it. After that, you have the track Left Behind, which is another song that I took to personally when I was younger. It's a very, very dark, sort of like hopeless kind of themes, and it's very aggressive. Once again, after that, we have I Am Hated, which is another heavy track that has more of a rap feel, and you can clearly tell that they're digging deep into their sort of hip hop influenced nu metal sort of sound, because you have very strong choruses, you have fast paced lyrics, and you have this strong hook, quote, "My life was always shit, and I don't think I need this anymore." Great line, and they break down into that chorus multiple times. So they'll do a verse, and then a chorus, and then a breakdown, and then another chorus, and then an interlude, and then another chorus, for example. At least it seems like, and that's in like a 2.5-3 minute song, which is impressive, but it does seem kind of forced, especially when you're looking at it from a song structure perspective, for example. So The song "Skin Ticket" has a weird, sort of eerie, soft section with Corey Taylor's pained vocals, and it builds into a heavy breakdown towards the later half of the song, and it features some great vocal hooks from Corey Taylor, and then the repetition of "Keeping Myself Alive" leads you into the next song, "New Abortion," which along with the song after, Metabolic, are both heavy finishers with lots of like rapped, screamed vocals and pretty simple, heavy riffs, and then a few spooky interludes. And then in the song "New Abortion," there aren't really any interludes in Metabolic, which is interesting because it's a good couple minute song. It's almost nonstop energy, and this kind of structure with the with the fast-paced verses, and then catchy but aggressive choruses, and then heavy, simple riffs underneath, is exactly what Slipknot does best. They have this down to a craft, and the song "Metabolic" especially features marathon double bass through the verse by Joey Jordison, and it's very, very impressive. And then finally, we have the last track, which is "Iowa." The last track is 15 minutes long, and it closes out the album. It's filled with spooky soundscapes, ambient screams from Corey Taylor and presumably other members of the band as well, and some of the most pained vocals that Corey Taylor's ever done. It said that he was, when recording for the song, he was naked, vomiting on himself, and cutting himself with broken glass in the studio, and according to him, which is horrifying. Iowa builds slowly from these sort of eerie soundscapes into heavy, heavy breakdown riffs on two occasions in the song, which during that time it's slowed down to almost doom metal territory as the riff builds up, sort of, to a climax, and that's a really intelligent way of closing out the album by building up into an aggressive climax and then ending it off. But the song is 15 minutes long, and they do that twice, and so it could have easily been chopped down by like almost half, probably. It's way too long, and it honestly is such a crawl to listen to when you've already listened to 50 minutes of Slipknot beforehand. This song could be half as long, and it would be twice as good, I think. And even though the soundscapes that are created by Sid Wilson and the production team are very impressive, it lasts for way too long. And so that is kind of unfortunate. Overall, it's a great album. It's a great album for introductory fans to metal, people who aren't really familiar with what's going on. It might not be super approachable because it is quite a bit heavier than what Slipknot usually puts out, or what Slipknot has put out later in their career, for example. But it is a very good example of what Slipknot can do, and it's arguably their best album. I personally really liked this album when I was younger, when I was getting into metal, and it means quite a bit to me. And so I can't give it a bad score, even though it's not necessarily something I listen to much anymore, because I've moved on to more extreme things, I suppose. But I have to appreciate what it's done for the metal community as a whole, and for so many fans of the genre who probably wouldn't have made it there if it weren't for Slipknot, including myself. And so that's why I'm going to give Slipknot's album "Iowa" a 3.5 out of 5 stars.